How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to 14P Fantasy. I am your host, Justin Wright. Today, we are breaking down week one of free agency. Obviously, we did a day one, winners and losers. So James Conner, Christian Kirk, any deals that happened day one, we're not going to cover in this video. So check that out. We had 4 names over there. This one, though, we got a long one. We got 8 players, 8 winners and losers in this episode here again. So I think it's 5 and 3 is how the breakdown works out. But we're going to touch on all of them, covering, the majority of the fantasy relevant moves for free agency that broke, before 2 o'clock on Sunday. That's when this is recorded. So anything after, we'll get in another video. Before we get into it though, guys, as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video if you like what we're doing here. If you have questions, comments, drop that stuff below. We're happy to answer anything for you. If you want some personal advice, check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/14P Fantasy. Over there at that top tier, we will break down one of your dynasty teams, send you a 10 to 15 minute video with me and Marco looking over your roster, talking specific player value and what trades you could make, to help improve your roster. All right, guys, let's just get into it. Like I said, we got a bunch of names here. Number 1 on the list, it is Allen Robinson. And Allen Robinson is a guy we have talked about, go buying for cheap. Go and buy for cheap. That makes more sense. Because no matter what happened in free agency, he was going to improve his value. And he landed in arguably the best possible spot for his value. I mean, with what we're looking at, obviously, Allen Robinson signed a 3-year contract. Robert Woods has now been traded, again, coming off that ACL injury. OBJ has not been re-signed. And again, he's also going to be hurt for most of the season. Allen Robinson steps in right now as the clear-cut number 2 in an insanely impressive Los Angeles Rams offense. Again, he's 28. You're looking at a guy who's now playing with the best quarterback of his career by a wide margin. 2019, 2020, obviously, he was a top 10 wide receiver, averaged over 250 fantasy points, but he did see 150 targets. So if you're being realistic as a contender, you're not getting a top 10 Allen Robinson. The volume's just not going to be there for him. However, there's a world he sees 120 to 130 targets and easily finishes inside the top 20 with a chance to land inside the top 15 for the 2021 or the 2022 season and even 2023, depending on what other moves they make. So Allen Robinson right now is a guy, if you can go trade a late first for him, I'm taking that deal. I don't think he's washed up. If I can trade a late 2023 first, then that's risky. But again, if you're a contender, the goal is to win. Allen Robinson's going to help you do that. He made out like a freaking bandit here. His value is continually climbing. I'm trying to still acquire him pretty much anywhere as long as it's not a huge overpay. Jumping to the next guy here, though, guys, the Browns wideouts. Obviously, the Deshaun Watson saga has finally come to an end, at least as far as finding a team. There's a whole mess of issues with Deshaun Watson. We're not going to touch on it, not our place. But we are going to talk about the fantasy outcome here. And regardless of his suspension or not, this is a huge boost to Browns wide receivers, whether it's, DPJ, Amari Cooper, Anthony Schwartz, if he somehow survives as a key option through the offseason. This is huge for all of them. But specifically, Amari Cooper is going to be the clear-cut number 1 on this offense. I'm pretty confident in the games that Deshaun Watson plays, Amari Cooper is going to be a top 10 wide receiver. If you look at what Watson did in Houston, his lead wide receiver was a guaranteed superstar. So the 3 seasons he actually played, the majority of the season. You're looking at DeAndre Hopkins finishing as wide receiver 4 in 2018. DeAndre Hopkins finishing as wide receiver 4 in 2019. And then Will Fuller, just to really mix it up, and it's not just a superstar, but Will Fuller finished as the wide receiver 8 in points per game. Amari Cooper is better than Will Fuller. I don't care, people may disagree with that, but Will Fuller's talented, just can't stay healthy. But Amari Cooper is a damn good wide receiver. And yes, he has been in fantastic situations before. However, Deshaun Watson is better than Dak Prescott, and I think by a good chunk. And it's not as if Deshaun Watson turned these guys into, top 10, top 5 wide receivers based on just insane volume. He's never thrown more than 550 passes in a season. Baker Mayfield's been fluctuating between, 480 and 530, like in that pocket. And that's what Deshaun Watson's been doing, the same thing. So the volume isn't too much of a concern for me. It's huge if you have the wide receivers here. Obviously, they may bring back Jarvis Landry back, and that could hurt DPJ. But for now, Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones are, they're skyrocketing. And obviously, suspension's going to jack it up. But when he's active, this is huge for them. To our first quote-unquote loser on the list, it is Robert Woods. Obviously, he is no longer on the Rams. I don't do jersey swaps, so oh well. But Robert Woods leaving the Rams, going to the Titans, that sucks. It sucks for his value. There is just no other way to put it. Robert Woods is not a deep threat. He's not a guy that is putting up a ton of touchdowns. He's a volume guy that is great after the catch. And Ryan Tannehill and this offense in Tennessee is a step down from LA. There's no way to cut that. But if you kind of want to quantify it here, if you are just looking at volume available to him, the last 3 seasons, the Rams with Stafford and Jared Goff have thrown 35 passes a game, 36 passes a game, and then 39 passes a game back with Jared Goff in 2019. Tannehill the last 2 seasons has thrown 31 a game and 30 a game. Now, it may not seem like a lot, but 5 to 9 targets a game is a notable drop-off for any wide receiver. And obviously, he's still going against A.J. Brown, so he's not going to come in as the de facto 1. And we just saw Julio struggle, and I think Robert Woods is better than Julio at this point in his career. But he's still coming off of his own injury. He's now, like I said, in a less explosive, a less pass-friendly offense. It's a bad look for Robert Woods. If you have him and you got left holding the bag, if you can trade him for a second, I'm probably going to go ahead and do that, like an early second. If you can get it, pull the trigger. If not, I think you got to ride it out because it could pan out, but it's not what you want to see in March right now. Next player on the list, we have JUJU Smith-Schuster. And this one, he's a winner and he's a loser. Like there's layers to this here. From a dynasty value perspective, huge winner. JUJU's actual dynasty value has skyrocketed. I have seen him traded for the 108 and the 110, separate deals, not in the same, but 108 and the 110 in separate leagues. And if you can get a late first for JUJU, sell him immediately. Like JUJU's good. He's still very young. However, we have seen enough that we know he is not that true difference-making wide receiver we saw early in his career. It just doesn't seem that way. And now, if you don't sell, he's the wide receiver 2 in Kansas City, which on paper looks fantastic. However, when you get into that offense, he's the third option. Obviously, he's going to be behind Hill and Kelsey. And we've seen other wide receivers too struggle. Yes, JUJU is 1,000 times better than Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson and Mecole Hardman. That's not even a question. Sammy Watkins, he's better. I don't care. But you're still the third option. So it's going to be a lot of highs and lows. I think realistically, JUJU is going to be like a mid-tier wide receiver 3 with some wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 weeks. He has that upside. So he'll be an interesting play there. But on paper, his value skyrocketing, and I don't think it should be. He's just become a clear sell at this point. This is what you wanted if you had him. This is your window to kind of get out from underneath because, again, I think he's going to be a pretty replaceable fantasy asset, although he's going to be that way for a long time. So figure that out. But if you can get a late first, sell him. Just do it now. Next on the list, this is the other side of the Deshaun Watson trade. Davis Mills. Davis Mills is – Baker Mayfield didn't go back to Houston in this trade. Davis Mills is now, at least for 2022, the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans. I don't think they take a chance on a quarterback here. I think they ride this out one more season. And is Davis Mills the most impressive player you're going to watch on the field? No. It's just no. He's basically cheaper Mac Jones. And that may seem mean, but he averaged 1 point less a game than Mac Jones in fantasy in the worst situation imaginable. Like Mac Jones, I don't care about for fantasy because he's overpriced for what he's actually going to give you on the field. I much rather would have Davis Mills. Mac Jones is obviously a better quarterback, But that New England offense, they know what they're doing. They know they don't have to stress it with Mac. Davis Mills could produce the same volume as him, be a low-end QB2 potentially with a little bit of upside, but he's coming significantly cheaper. So Davis Mills is just an interesting target in general, but now he's an interesting flyer late in Superflex best ball, I should say. That QB3 is an interesting piece. And then even in dynasty leagues, I'm happy to have him as my QB3 because I do think he has potential to have a long career in the NFL. He showed a good amount in, like I said, the worst possible situation in the NFL. But for now, Davis Mills is still the starter and a guy, if you can get him cheap, I'm happy to grab him in dynasty right now. Next on our list, we have DJ CHARK, finally free from Jacksonville, and he got paired with arguably the worst quarterback for his skill set. There's no way around it. If you go back to 2019, DJ CHARK was spectacular. He hasn't really been crap since then, but in that season, he had just under 1,500 air yards. He was top 15 in deep targets. That's how he makes his money, right? We all know this. DJ CHARK is a great vertical threat. So naturally, pairing him with Jared Goff makes no sense at all. The last 2 seasons, so first we'll go with the Lions and then the Rams. Last 2 seasons, he was, Jared Goff, was 24th in deep ball percentage and 35th in air yards per attempt. 35th. It's 32 starting quarterbacks. He does not throw the ball deep. It just doesn't happen. And if you think, okay, well, that's just Dan Campbell and Anthony Lynn calling a shitty offense. Okay, let's look at the Rams, 2020. 32nd in deep ball percentage. First of all, 27%. Just terrible. Just absolutely pathetic. But on top of that, he was 34th in air yards per attempt. He just does not air the ball out. I mean, this DJ CHARK, it's not necessarily good for Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's going to take targets. However, it's terrible for DJ CHARK because those targets are going to be terrible. They're going to be so bad. So DJ CHARK just does not make out well here. And again, I still think they bring in another wide receiver in the draft, if not 2. So DJ CHARK is a guy, I'm getting rid of him. I don't want any part of him. I haven't for, 2 years now. Next on the list, we have Raheem Mostert coming in as a winner here. And, the flip side of that, Chase Edmonds probably kind of a loser in this situation. But Raheem Mostert coming to an offense he knows inside and out. He has basically been picked to be the early down back in this offense. We know that's happening. Again, he wouldn't be coming over with the rest of the San Francisco staff if that was not the intention. I don't expect them to bring in an early running back, again, after they sign Mostert and Chase Edmonds. And here's the thing. Raheem Mostert's going to get the goal line work. Chase Edmonds never, ever gets utilized that way. In 4 years, Chase Edmonds has 5 goal line carries. And then if you look at 2020, Raheem Mostert had 6 goal line carries in 8 games. So we know who the goal line back is. We know who's going to get the red zone work. And Raheem Mostert can still burn. I mean, obviously the question is going to be health, like it always is with him. But he's going to be cheaper than Chase Edmonds, most likely. We know what Chase Edmonds is. I'm going to be taking the chance on Raheem Mostert later, I should say, in redraft. But as far as dynasty goes, if someone's willing to give him up for a 3rd round pick, which at this point he's 29, this is their sell window. If they missed it last year, go send it out. It can't hurt. Again, you get him for pretty cheap, even a late second. I'll do that. I don't care about the back half of this draft. So I think that's a good move as well. And finally, to close us out, we have Hunter Renfrow. He is a loser in this situation because the big news, Davante Adams is now a Raider. He is best friends with Derek Carr. And people are going to tell you, and they're going to use this logic of, well, Davante Adams is going to pull coverage away from Hunter Renfrow, even though he sees less targets. It's a good thing. No, it's not a good thing. Davante Adams is going to step in and be the immediate number 1 in this offense. He'll be ahead of Darren Waller. They don't pay him that contract to not utilize him an absurd amount. Davante Adams probably bringing in 150 targets this year. That's going to come from Waller, and it's going to come from Renfrow and maybe some of the ancillary pieces. But Hunter Renfrow is a low average depth of target guy that doesn't really play in 2 wide receiver sets. This cannot be good for him. He had 128 targets last year. Again, was a top 11 wide receiver, which is great. But his red zone work's going to drop. Davante Adams is better than him in that area. He's better pretty much everywhere on the field. He's the best receiver in the NFL. Hunter Renfrow is going to drop. He's probably going to realistically be up and down like Cole Beasley, like we've seen the last couple of years. So he'll go anywhere from a top 20 wide receiver to a bottom 30. Like that, he has a wide range of outcomes that are probably not going to be fun. Low average depth of target, lower volume than usual. Hunter Renfrow, that breakout was fun, but I think it's probably behind him at this point. All right, guys, if you like what we're doing here, again, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, questions, comments, drop them all below. Check out the Patreon page. That's the big one for us. You get all of our dynasty rankings, our tiered rookie ranks. And like I said, that final piece, if you do that top tier, we break down one of your dynasty teams, giving you trade advice, dynasty advice, all this other type of stuff, personalized for your team. So check that out. Patreon.com/14P Fantasy. The link is in the bio. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.